This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 90. And that's 90, not 19. Sorry about my accent. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. I am so excited to be with you another day, you guys. I have to just keep saying it. It is an honor to spend this time with you. I know your time is valuable. I know you have a lot going on, and so it means a lot to me that you include me in this wonderful journey of mental health and well-being and self-care. So, yay. In the name of well-being and self-care and mental health, today's interview is so sweet. I just loved this interview so much because I had the pleasure of interviewing Morgan Rondinelli and Molly Fishback from Not Alone Notes. You can go directly to them on notalonenotes.org. And they are these two incredible souls on a mission to make people feel less alone, particularly in the areas of obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, and body-focused repetitive behaviors such as skin picking and hair pulling. What they are doing is incredible. And I don't want to give too much away of what they do because they will really talk about that in the interview. And so all I want to do is just for you to really hear their stories and hear what amazing things they are doing. In this episode, what they do is not only do they share about their mission to make people not feel alone, they also share very vulnerably their own story of mental illness and mental health. And they get super, super open and share with us at what stage they are in recovery, what challenges they're still facing, what it's been like for them to get to where they are. And it's so great to hear people so open and so willing to share their story, not for any selfish reason, but to make people feel less alone. And that's what this is often about, right? That's what the Facebook group CBT School Campus is about. That's what CBT School is about, is like, let's get together and let's understand and learn through each other that we're all good, when there's nothing wrong with us per se, that we aren't the outsiders, that we're actually the insiders, that within this community, you have a lot of like-minded people who are gorgeous souls, just gorgeous souls. You guys, I know a lot of you. I've talked with you on the Magic Mondays. I've talked with you in messages on Instagram. You are gorgeous people, right? Just brave, cool, hilarious people, right? And so I love how Molly and Morgan really bring to light this community that we have, and that they're bringing other people in who feel really alone, and they're bringing them to the community so they feel less alone. They share about what it was like to do exposure and response prevention, which I really appreciated. And they shared creative ways that they are using exposure and response prevention. So it's so good. And the thing I really love is stay right till the end. We talk about how productivity can sometimes mistakenly equal self-worth and their process of managing that. And I really resonated with that. You guys know some of my story around that one topic. So, if that's you, if you're someone who works because it gives you a sense of worthiness, you're going to love that part of the conversation. So I'm not going to talk for too much longer. Let's get into the show. One thing I want to mention, last of all, is as you listen to this, if you're listening to this as it comes out, I will be in Denver at the OCD Game Changers event, which is a huge honor to be at that event. And if you didn't know about this, don't worry, there's actually going to be a virtual video release of the event. So all of the event will be recorded. You can purchase that and listen back to it because there are some incredible clinicians, incredible advocates. They're the ones who are changing the game for OCD. And I would love for you to be able to catch that at a fairly low fee to see the recording. So if you want to go and see that, go over to Chrissy Hodges, which is www.ChrissieHodges.com. And right there at the front is the annual Game Changers event. You can click on the link and you can purchase the replay. Chrissy's doing some great work. Again, another huge advocate who is really bringing us home to see that you are not the outsiders. We are actually the insiders. There is a club called, that is around this mental health that you are included in. So you are not alone. Okay, let's get to the show. Have a wonderful day, you guys. And I am sending big love, big virtual hugs out to you.
Well, welcome. Today is a very exciting day, not only because I have two amazing guests, but we've never done a two-guest episode on Your Anxiety Toolkit. So this is super exciting for me on the technology end, but even more exciting to have Morgan Rondinelli and Molly Fishback with us from notalonenotes.org. So welcome.
Hello.
So let's get immediately into how cool it is that you're here. Both the girls have I Am Not Alone on their t-shirts for those of you who can't see the video version of this, which I love. So perfect segue into tell us all about why and how you created Not Alone Notes.
So I've had OCD since, kindergarten, and I didn't find out till I was about 19. And I just remember not knowing anyone and feeling like I was the only one who had OCD. I just wished to meet someone. And so I met a lot of people through OCD Con and the International OCD Foundation. And so then about 4 years later, I was writing letters with them as pen pals. And I was just thinking, what could I do to somehow reach these people who feel alone? And then I had the idea that, I could send them a letter. Even if they don't know me, it can help them feel less alone. And then Molly joined in.
And how did that happen?
Yeah, I found Morgan on Twitter, and it was just like one of her blog posts, I think, about Not Alone Notes. And I asked her if I could design the cards for her project. And now it's turned into both of us writing the cards, and Morgan also makes some of the cards as well. Handmade cards and handwritten notes.
It's incredible. I see you guys on Instagram like dumping hundreds of cards into the mailbox. So share with me, what is it that you're sharing on these letters and how you do it? Just tell me everything, basically.
It's basically about, we do mention ERP because I wanted to make sure I got that in there. You should know about ERP. And so we wish them courage. We basically say, whatever you're fighting, you're not alone. Take time for self-care. Just words of encouragement, really. Because obviously it's not therapy. It's just to be encouraging. And then we include a resource list that is here are ways to find a therapist. The ICDF website, your podcast.
And we've also recently included the option to choose if you have a BFRB. So that note is a little bit different than either OCD, BFRB, or both. You have the option to choose.
It's so cool. I just can't even tell you. Okay, so let's say I'm a sufferer. Tell me the procedure that they would go through.
So notalonenotes.org, you can check out all the places we've sent them. There's maps and thank you notes, but there's a link to request a note. And it takes you to a Google form. So you put in your name, your address, your favorite color. So then we pick a card that is your favorite color that Molly has handmade. Yeah, and it'll ask, like, do you have OCD or BFRBs? Anything else you need to tell us? And then we recently added a question, just since we're growing bigger, of like, we know there's a lot of misconceptions about OCD. Yes, I have real OCD, as opposed to like, no, I just like things orderly, like just to make sure, a little bit of a screening.
Right, right. And then from there, you get the information.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long can people expect to get a card?
It kind of depends. Yeah.
I would say about a month is like the most
Yeah.
longest it will take. But then it also depends if you're international, it's not
Right.
our fault if it gets there longer. We have recently got a PO box. So if the card gets lost in the mail and cannot be delivered, it will come back to us so we can let the person know if they follow us on a social media and we can look up their name, or we just know that it didn't get delivered to a certain place.
Yeah. It's super helpful to know if it didn't make it, because before we were just like, I hope it gets there.
Yeah.
This just blows my mind that you guys are taking your time to be so incredibly supportive. It's so wonderful. It just makes me so happy because one of the most common things I hear is relief that they're not the only human who has what they're going through, whether it's through social media or the podcast. So what goes into the card? Like, tell us about your experience. Obviously, you're doing it because you've both understood this idea or concept of being alone. Can either of you, or hopefully both of you, share with me what it was like, your experience feeling so alone in what you were working through?
Yeah. So it was mostly when I went away to college, things got really bad. I was tapping light switches to prevent fires and hoarding Post-it notes with lists that did not make any sense, but to me. And I was just spending hours doing rituals, and I knew literally no one with OCD. I didn't even know I had OCD. And I just remember my roommate, she would just look at me like I was so weird, like, what are you doing? And it really made a difference to finally meet people and join clubs like Active Minds and the services for students with disabilities. I was on their advisory board, and meet other people who get it. It's so reassuring in a non-bad reassuring way.
Right.
Yeah,
in a compulsive reassuring way.
I've not been as open about my OCD with people. Morgan has been recently. Like, she has a blog and she has videos of herself online. So I've had OCD since I was like 4. We didn't know what it was, but I would walk past things and say, like, if I lick this, will I die? And so I was actually misdiagnosed with ADHD in 5th grade, but I was diagnosed with OCD in 6th grade, and no one knew about it and I didn't talk about it. And then until college, where I kind of had to explain things because I had a roommate and I had bathmates, and I would be like, and I was friends with them, but I would be like crying about things or going home a lot. And they would be like, what's going on with Molly? My parents were like, you have to tell them because they're going to be worried and confused. And so I kind of just said I had anxiety, which I thought was like easier to do than say I have OCD. But then I guess as the years, that was like freshman, sophomore year. And then as the year went on, like the college years went on, I think I eventually said I had OCD. I don't know how it came up in conversation. I think I was just worried about something. I don't know. I don't think they saw me doing rituals, but I just mentioned it. But I also got involved with Active Minds. And I think that was the main like turning point for advocacy, because I've never been in a group of people before that, like, I never talked about like even mental health with other people at that time, like people my own age. And so that was, I guess, a turning point. And then I felt more comfortable. It was like small steps. Even now is like a big step, but doing Not Alone notes helps with talking like bit by bit my little stories and sharing little things here and there. So now I'm more open. But
yeah. Is even being on this podcast today scary for you guys?
I'm definitely getting a little sweaty.
I am sweating.
Well, you know you're safe here, but I think the reason I ask is I think even when we're advocates, myself included, it's such a vulnerable place to be in to really talk about it, right?
I'm trying not to think about the people who will be listening to this while I'm recording this. Because I don't even know, I guess I have shared online that I have OCD, but not publicly on like my social medias. I mean, people can search enough and they'll find, if they stalk me enough, they can find me. But then it's also, I'm anxious now because we're working, like talking to someone that we look up to, not only just sharing our stories with them too.
Oh, you don't
We
need to
think you're
worry
cool.
here. Oh, thank you. That is so, I think you guys are incredible, really. I mean, all I can say is these are the types of communities we meet in our small communities, right? Like your little community of Not Alone Notes is making such an impact for those people who are in exactly the position you guys have and are in, right? And that's, I think, is so incredibly powerful. And I really actually appreciate you guys sharing like it's scary still, because I think that's the realistic experience for us as we make this journey of like, yeah, it's not like you tell one person and you feel fine about it, right? It's like this unfolding.
Yeah, and no one, I know people say that they might be recovered a little bit, but I have not done like intensive ERP, and I'm about to do that, hopefully with this new therapist. So that is also something that I have to dive into. And even though we're doing this project, we're not recovered or halfway recovered. Like we're all at our own pace.
You're walking the walk, really. So I love this, Molly. Can I ask you some questions about this? So many times on social media and on my Facebook group, the CBT School Community Facebook group, people have never heard about ERP before. And then when we educate them and say, look, there's this great treatment, it's so successful, but it's scary, they're almost sort of, I can see like they're like, that is crazy scary. So can you share with me, like you're saying you're moving into this, can you share with us how you're feeling about moving in towards doing exposure and response prevention?
Sure. So I recently was on the hunt for an ERP therapist, and there was one therapist that I talked to that was, even on the phone, she was questioning to see how willing I was to be like scared. She was like, you're going to have a job. You have a job. Like, are you sure you can do this with a job? She was like scaring me, but I was like, yes, I want this. Like, I'm ready for it. I think there are certain circumstances that like it may not be appropriate for some people, like in the middle of a stressful year at college, but like I feel like I'm ready, and I am really worried, and I need to be motivated to do things. I'm not going to go in there being like, yes, I'm going to do all the exposures you tell me to do. Like I need to start small. I think OCDCon motivated me more because I learned more about what exactly it is and not what I thought it was.
What did you think it was?
I've done little exposures with past therapists, but I didn't realize how creative you could get with it. So for example, like the throw up fear and like making throw up, I saw online people were doing that, but then I didn't realize like how many steps were in between, I guess, doing the big exposure and the small exposure, and how creative you could be in the middle of it, and how many like unique ways you can incorporate different strategies that I personally, like I'm creative, but I can't think of things that I need to work on that way in my brain, because like now I'm starting to a little bit, but it's not easy for me to comprehend that.
Of course, especially if it's your fear. If it was someone else's fear, you'd probably have 17 ideas, right?
Even that, I can't figure it out. I'm still like learning the different, like there's so many like little things I never even thought of. Like I saw online someone made like on Christmas time you make those like paper crafts where you take a piece of paper and you put circles and they end up like looping together.
Like links.
Yeah. Someone wrote like their fears on all of those different links and would like hang it over in their bedroom or something. I was like, that is so brilliant. Like I need to be more creative with these different strategies. Like,
right. So you're really learning that you don't go from 0 to 100 miles per hour, that you can actually do these baby steps that can be in some ways even funny and fun.
Yeah. And I'm also like wanting to do stuff in the office, not just take it home and do it at home. Like I need to start really, really small, like in the office, and then gradually do that.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that you come in with a unique perspective of this is what it feels like to be at this part of the journey, right? It's great.
Yeah.
Because
We'll
most
see
people,
where I am next year.
well, that's the thing. We should do a year check-in, because I think so many people will really resonate with where you're at, of like, oh, thank goodness that's true. Thank goodness somebody else is, in that same step, because, you're talking about not being alone. There are probably millions of people in exactly your step right now.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And you're right. That's the funnest part about exposure therapy, is you can get so creative with games and things to do.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I just thought it was like with, for example, a throw up fear, it would be like listening to it, watching a video, and then like touching it, and like the three things you can only do. I didn't realize like all the little ideas in between that you can incorporate. So
Right.
I'm excited to start, but also, not excited, but I know it's time. I also feel like it's time. I've waited long enough.
Right. Yeah, you deserve that, really. I used to always have my clients get chalk and write their fear on the cement around the city, right? So you'd write vomit with chalk. Just, it washes off. No one needs to know who wrote it. So yeah, you can absolutely be creative with it. So, oh, congratulations. That is super excited. I'm very excited for you to be embarking
Thank you.
on that. Yeah. And so,
Thanks.
Morgan, where are you, if you're open to discussing,
Yeah.
where are you on the journey of ERP?
I have a big move coming up. So I'm about to move away by myself and start a real adult job. So that's pretty terrifying. That's my big exposure right now. But in terms of just, I don't know, not normal OCD, but the weird hoarding of Post-it notes and tapping light switches and all those fun things, I'd say I call myself as in recovery, just because I've done so many exposures. I even took time off from college and went to an OCD program and just did exposures all day so I could function again. So OCD-wise, things are good. It doesn't mean I'm not scared. I'm absolutely terrified right now to move away and start a job and be an adult. But it's about just knowing that, like, I can cope.
Right. You choose fear, Morgan.
Mhm.
Like, you're both choosing to face your fears. It's so great.
I want to add that Morgan's like preparing very well. She has like everything that we talk about, like her self-care. She has like a dance studio set up. She knows there was a group that
an ARP, like OCD support group, yeah.
Oh,
In the
wow.
middle of nowhere, Illinois. I was so shocked.
So you're all ready to, you've got that support system all set up, ready to go. It's incredible.
Yeah, found a therapist, got everything set up.
Wow. That's super dedication to your own care. Wow. So you guys are incredible. Like, look at you guys. You're doing all of these amazing things. But what strikes me is there's an authenticity here with you girls. Like, you're real and you're walking the walk, which I think is so cool. I want to come back to like how that translates into how you're writing these notes every day. Like, what is that process like for you, and how does it help you?
I find it very therapeutic. I usually turn on like some Mozart or show tunes, and I just try and think about each person, because sometimes the parent or the person will reach out to us and we get to know them a little more personally. And that always helps with, like, when I'm writing it, I just feel even more motivated. So I try and bring that motivation to each card and think about, well, there is a real person out there who is going to receive this and feel less alone, hopefully.
Right. How many are you doing a day or a week?
It depends how much time we have. Morgan definitely writes more than me. I try to crank out cards. That's my favorite part, is making the cards, and writing them is, I try to think about the person who's receiving the card as well, but it's not my favorite part. My favorite part is actually decorating the card too. I like to put like washi tape and stickers on the card. But how many do we write a week? How many do you write a week?
I will get in chunks where I'll do like 5 a day, and then I'll go like a week without writing any, and then I'll just go back. But that's also because I haven't had a job for like a month, so had plenty of time.
No, but it's still, I mean, that's a lot of work. And I think the thing that comes up for me is like, okay, so I'm a therapist, so you guys are putting the time in writing, and I'm doing the work with people face to face. It can sometimes be a lot of work that you need to sort of prepare for self-care wise. Tell me about how you guys practice self-care around doing this amazing thing for other people.
I definitely will limit myself in terms of how much I'll engage with other people's stories, because sometimes I'm like doing really well and happy to listen and connect people to resources and make sure they're getting treatment from a licensed professional. And other times I just need to take a few hours, before I answer and go read or do something, dance at a ballet and just do something else. So if I'm not in the place where I can engage yet.
Right. What about you, Molly?
So what I was thinking that I use productivity to value like my worth. So I do use the notes as a way to feel like I'm being productive, which I guess is not positive, but I do limit the amount of cards I do for writing, especially because writing is like the most tiring part of the process. Like I like to put on a podcast and make the cards. That's like my thing. At the same time as that, I feel like that's self-care because I'm like listening to music, listening to podcasts, and also being productive. And then for the writing part, I usually do 3 at a time, and that's my limit usually. But I, even just throughout the day, like I need at the end of the day to set time to just zone out and do whatever I like to do. So I'm able to chunk everything together and make sure I am having self-care involved in everything.
Right.
That was a drawn out way of saying that.
No, not at all. I'm really drawn to ask you questions about your productivity equaling worth. What's interesting, it's funny, I don't know if it's around the holidays, but I've probably had that conversation with like 5 clients today already.
Wow.
It's funny how universal that is for us as humans. I think especially maybe even Westerners, of always feeling like we have to be like moving forward. So you guys are doing this amazing Not Alone notes, and I love it. Tell me a little bit about how, I know the listeners are probably like nodding their head like, yes, that is me. I know it is. Tell us a little bit about what that's like for you, what that process feels like in your body or your brain.
So I've always been involved with some sort of project. And I was even thinking about mentioning this on the podcast because I was thinking about how Not Alone Notes has been going for over a year now and how we've stuck with it. I don't want to call Not Alone Notes a business, but I've been like business oriented since I was young. Even like my friend and I, we bought stuff through a catalog and would sell it on the side of the road. And the money donated, the goal was to give it to a children's hospital. Wow. And so ever since then, even like 4th grade, I was designing notepads on the computer and selling them. Like I've just been like always searching for projects. And so I would start them and they would always fizzle out. And so Not Alone Notes is my project at the moment and has been. And it's definitely the most fulfilling project and it's stuck together. I also usually, the projects are not with another person. And so it's helpful to motivate each other. And if one person is stronger at one thing, like Morgan's stronger at writing, she's the writer. But then also, I don't think I'm strong at it. So she'll force me
She's great. Don't listen to her.
She'll force me to write too. So it's like, it's this back and forth. It's fun having a partner in this project. And also the fact that we live like halfway across the country from each other is cool. I live in New York and Morgan.
I'm Ohio right now.
Yeah. So that's kind of my input.
Yeah. I just want to validate Molly because everything she's saying, I have to have projects and my value is tied to my productivity is so relatable.
Yeah.
I always have to have projects.
Right. And I know everyone who knows my story is very similar, right? It's like we do, in a false way, get our worth from doing activities and projects and stuff. And it's funny, I've said this so many times today. It's just so interesting how it's coming up for so many people. Like the synchronicity that now we're talking about it after talking about it with different people is that I think it just really does show how much we can sort of double down on doing instead of being, right? Like getting caught in the doing. Now, for you guys, I hand it to you. Your doing is for the right reasons. You're not just, rereading books over and over again. You're doing this.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I know. I think we're all used to being, we can all, like, we're all laughing because it's so true. But
I also am able to set a limit. I'm able to set a limit, and if I'm tired and I just can't do the project anymore, not in total, but for the day, then I know, like, I've taken weeks off from writing cards, and Morgan's will be the main writer. Like, it's just, we know how to create a balance with what we're doing. So it has to be, like, not to be serious, but and
that's the piece. I think that's the work towards just us managing that and regulating, because we have to be productive, right? Yeah.
I guess it's like human beings need to be productive in some way. So
yeah.
Mine's kind of the opposite though, because for me, my worth was always tied to my school productivity. So the fact that I'm taking time to write cards to strangers is actually used to be more of an exposure, because I'm graduated now, but I'm not doing something for school or a job or something that is that part of my life. So it was a big part of learning that, like, spending my time in other ways has worth and value too.
Right. What's the thing you've learnt the most from doing Not Alone Notes?
Ooh, I don't know.
I think I will say kind of what I said before about opening up to other people about OCD. And it's something that I never talked about, or I would just call it anxiety. And I don't go around telling people, but I've definitely told more friends in the past, like, especially when I went to OCD Con, it was a good way to be like, oh, I'm going to this conference over the summer, because they would ask, where are you going? And then I would say, it's for OCD. And so it helped me tell or be more open with some friends. I mean, it starts small, and now the whole world knows through this podcast, but no. But no, it's, I guess that's the most valuable thing I've learned. And then also meeting other people, which is also with OCD Con, but I have, like, the biggest support group with friends from OCD Con. We talk every day, and it's, like, incredible. Like, I've never had anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, friends I talk to with daily, like, constantly, like.
I would say the most relevant thing I've learned is, Molly mentioned how we're kind of partners in this, and I used to insist that synergy was a lie and that we're all better if we work by ourselves, because I was a very perfectionistic student, and I didn't want, and we even did this activity in high school where it was like a survival skills, and your score was supposed to go up when you worked with a group. I was the only one out of hundreds of people whose score went down. And I was like, see, synergy is a lie. But this has changed my mind, because Molly has really good ideas that I would have never thought of. And so we're just able to bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's true. I love this. Like, I feel like I'm repeating. I'm just like, I just love it. It's so good. It's such a great story, this story between you girls, of, like, that, particularly, I will say, in our OCD and our BFRB communities, it does feel so small, but yet somehow you guys have, it sounds like, met the most rich relationships because of it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a message that we forget, is, like, we feel so alone. We feel like no one gets it. Even if they have OCD, they don't get my kind of OCD. Right. But yet when you're open to it, you can have these deeply rich and really awesome relationships, which is so cool. And that's why I love both the BFRB conference and the OCD conference. Just they're like family. You get to see your family every year in a different city.
Yeah. Another thing is that you kind of mentioned, you started talking about this earlier, how you see therapists in the office, and then my brain went to, so we kind of are there when they go home. So, like, people keep this note with them. They bring it to school, they bring it to work. So therapists can use us too and let their clients know about our notes.
Right. And that's, like, what I think the reason I was so excited to have you guys on is, you're so right. And I say it to my clients too, like it's easy to nod at your client and be like, at your therapist and be like, yep, I get it. But it's hard for it to stick when you're anxious at home, feeling alone. Like our anxious brain actually isn't supposed to hold information when we're anxious, right?
Yeah.
And so you guys are having like this hard copy of hope and inspiration. It's so wonderful. So for the listeners, what, if you would, like, tell me what you might hear if you got a not alone note.
I don't want to spoil it too much.
Good. Don't.
But it's basically just a message of courage. It's like if I could package courage into a note and mail it to you, that's the goal.
With a pretty card of original handmade work.
Brilliant.
No, but brilliant. Each one is, we don't print them. Like each one is like actually individual and different than the next.
They're probably going to be like collector's items here in
Oh gosh.
I want one. Can I have one?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to sign up for one too. This is wonderful. You guys are incredible. I just love this so much. Okay. So let me get back. At the end, you guys can really give information about, where people can contact you and everything like this. What is the one thing you wished you had have been written to on a card? Like, what did you need to hear? Or what do you need to hear right now? Like, no matter where you are on your journey.
I think at the beginning, it would have been useful to hear that it'll get easier and it'll get better, because at the beginning, even if you're doing the work, it can feel like you're just not making progress at first. And sometimes it can feel like it's getting worse before it gets better. But eventually the exposures start to tally up and you do start to notice progress, but it takes a while to notice it.
Right. I guess I'll say in the way beginning, when I was first diagnosed, it would be more that there are other people out there that are going through the same thing as you. And that's kind of how we actually found out I have OCD, because it was through a magazine article that my mom found. And then now I want to know that ERP, kind of what Morgan said about ERP, because I'm about to go into it. So we'll see how it goes. So any advice about ERP would be my note to myself.
Yeah.
Or my note from someone.
Exactly. Or to yourself. Yeah. What I would say, if it's helpful, is trust that treatment. It is gold, right? Like, there's very few things that I trust as much as ERP in terms of just how amazing those outcomes are. If you can hold your heart as you do those really horrible, scary, hard things, right? Because in those moments, the short-term discomfort can be so uncomfortable. But that's what I always tell my clients: just trust that process, because it's brilliant. It's a brilliant process. The outcomes are so good. So I'm so excited for you. I really do want to do like a year check-in with both of you.
Okay, sure.
Like,
thank you.
How's your move? And how's your ERP going? So good. I love it. Okay, so tell everybody, how can we get in contact with you guys? Tell us all about how we can contact you.
So Not Alone Notes is at Not Alone Notes on Facebook and Instagram. And then our website is notaloneNotes.org. It used to be housed on my blog, which is My OCD Voice, but now it has its own fancy website.
And you can still find the website through Morgan's blog.
Yeah, there's a link.
A lot of people come from there too.
Okay.
Oh, what's your blog name?
It's myocdvoice.wordpress.com.
Okay. myocdvoice.wordpress.com. Okay. And I'm going to ask you some quick questions. Can we do a speed question?
Yes.
Okay. We'll do this sort of to finish up. I'll say your name and then I'll ask the question. Molly, what's the scariest thing you've ever done?
How can these be speed questions?
Take your time.
I guess
speeds for different folks.
No, I got it. I guess going away from home to college.
Yes. Morgan, scariest thing you've ever done?
I would say my first exposure ever, which was touching a chocolate chip to my nose, because it makes no sense, but I was afraid if something touched my nose, I would like inhale that instead of oxygen and die.
Interesting.
Which makes no sense.
But you did the exposure and
yeah, and then I got to eat the chocolate chip, so I figured that was a way to make it fun.
There's an immediate benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part about having OCD, Molly?
Being anxious all the time.
Morgan?
Having most people not understand.
Right. How, Morgan, would you encourage people to become understanding?
I think as soon as you meet someone who has OCD, that can help. But obviously not everyone is comfortable sharing their stories. So sometimes you can share someone else's story, but just getting to know the face of it.
I keep resources on my phone for when someone asks what is OCD, and I pull up an article. I did it today with my friend. She asked me what OCD was, and I read her the article, and then she said, "But what are your OCDs? What are your themes?" And so it's a good conversation starter.
Can I ask? That's a brilliant way to do it. What is the article? Do you know? Is it?
Well, I think so you can find so I would look on The Mighty, because I think everyone has a different way of explaining it. Like the article that I found, it listed like a little bit about what OCD was, and then it had different examples that were not ordinary, what you think of when you think of OCD. It was a lot of, I mean, it's normal to us, but fear of driving, compulsions about checking, like someone was married and they thought that they might be gay. Like there's lots of different, like when people ask me about OCD, my brain goes blank. Like I can't explain it very well. So I go to articles to help me explain it. But you can find an article that represents your type of OCD and do it that way. Or you can look, I showed Morgan's video to my friend as well from Real OCD Week or OCD Week, but it was a hashtag Real OCD video. So that helped to explain it as well. So,
right. Love it. Such a great way to do it, which we haven't talked about. Okay. Morgan, best thing to get you through anxiety?
Ballet. Absolutely.
Oh, it's so mindful.
It's my favorite mindfulness activity.
Right. And Molly, favorite thing you do to get through your anxiety?
I think watching YouTube, because I kind of just zone out.
Right.
I mean, I guess there's healthier things like exercise, but
no. I think the truth is you're directing your attention to things you value and enjoy, and I love that. So I think everybody is different, right? I think that's the beauty of it. We all get to do our own different thing, right? I remember someone saying they would just like look at shapes. That was their thing. It can be whatever you want it to be. Okay.
It could also be art, but that's like more effort than just watching YouTube.
You can't pull out your art easel while you're driving your car, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you guys, I am so grateful to have you guys on. This has been such a pleasure to hear about you guys and the amazing work that you're doing. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.